we are looking at in relation to research design is the time horizon. As Saunders' research onion indicated, time horizon is the fifth layer in the research onion. So it follows after the research strategies we've discussed, which linked to the data collection analysis method later on. There are mainly two time horizons for research. It could be cross-sectional or longitudinal. Cross-sectional research refers to a research that you look into a snapshot of a particular time. Yeah. So, for example, you're investigating into a company's organizational change, which is the change it took place at one particular point, but you're speaking to different people involved in the change, yeah, to look into how they react to the changes, for example, yeah. So it is a snapshot of a given point in time and looking into the changes at a societal level, okay, an organizational level, as we mentioned. So you look into this particular organizational change event, yeah, and then look into their views. So comparatively, longitudinal research refers to a series of snapshots and a representation of an event over a period of time. Okay, so you look into several points in time, not only one particular change. Probably you look into the organizational changes, for example, and from the very beginning till the date. Yeah, so look into a series of the snapshot. So how a company changed, for example, from the very starting point with one particular product and later to diversify its product range. So how these changes has been. Okay, so obviously you probably use the same sample. So look into the product range. So look into this particular product range, for example, but look into this from a long period of time. Okay. So the example given here in this slide looked into the British Society Attitude Survey or Labour Force Survey for cross-sectional research. So you look into the attitude of a particular event at that time. Yeah, and then for longitudinal research, you probably look into the British Birth Cohort Study or Understanding Society. So you look into the birth rate not only at this particular point, but look into the birth cohort, over a period of time, within a particular, for example, region or country as a whole. Yeah. To summarize it, it's quite easy to understand. So when we mention, longitudinal, if you think about long, okay, so where we refer to study over time. Okay, so there are a few examples here where it gives you idea what do we mean by longitudinal. So where you're looking at trend in the same population over time. For example, you may want to look into fashion, people's taste in fashion, the changes, in the fashion industry. So within the particular, population, look into how their views changed. Yeah, or it could be the particular cohort where changes in a population group identified, by common characteristics over time. Yeah, so over time again, within a particular cohort, or could be a panel, changes in the same population or same people over time. Okay, so how that changes over a period of time. So cross-sectional, on the other hand, is the study at one point and in time, as we said, is a snapshot. Okay, it could be attitude and practice of particular event. Okay, it could be a community needs at this particular time under COVID, for example. It could be a program evaluation, just say how it happens, after this has been implemented. Okay, so in relation to your research, I think most of research probably at postgraduate level involves cross-sectional, because you may not have time to look into the longitudinal unless you have the data over time, as we said, as an archive study. On secondary research, you have the data in a longitudinal order or chronological order that you've already collected. But otherwise, if you look into case studies, for example, you may just look into the particular event that is as a snapshot. Okay. So by now, this week we have looked into research design by referring to the methodological choices of a research, the strategies of research, or the time horizon that adopted for research. So these three main elements, the yellow layers of the research onion, really forms the main research design. And before we move on to the specific techniques or procedures that use to collect data and analyze the data. Okay, so it's vital for you to explain your own research design and understand and apply it in your own research. And obviously last week we looked into the research philosophy and approached theory development. And it's important that you understand the consistency, within all these layers. Okay. So we talked about alignment and coherence in our first presentation slide when we looked into the overview of a research design. So when we refer to the different layers, so obviously the concept you refer to in each layer should be consistent or coherent or aligned to each other. So the way how you link your research philosophy to the research strategy or to the methodological choices should be aligned with each other. Okay. The alignment and coherence of your research design can be seen from the consistency between different layers. So for example, if your research adopts a positivism research paradigm or philosophy, and is very likely in the second layer, your approach to theory development would be deductive research, because you probably believe into there's one reality in the world, so which is very objective ontology, and then the way how the theory is developed or your relationship as a researcher in terms of the epistemology will be where you believe into the causal relationships, for example, and observation where stands out there the reality, yeah, for you to identify. So the approach theory development would be, you look into the existing literature and develop hypotheses, and then you test the hypotheses. So when you move into the third layer, methodological choice, it's very likely in relation to the positivist research and then deductive approach. So you're adopting quantitative research methodological choice. Could be mono, could be multiple, but they're all related to quantitative methodological choice. Okay, so when it comes to strategy, the next layer is likely you're going to adopt surveys or experiments. Yeah, so typical questionnaires, for example, as a quantitative research method, for example. And then in terms of the time horizons, it could be a longitudinal or cross-sectional. So you may look into particular figures or numbers, for example, from a longitudinal point of view to say, for example, the output of the organization after a series of changes over the years, for example, or could be cross-sectional. You just look into how this organizational change this time impact the sales before and after, for example. Yeah, so could be longitudinal, cross-sectional. It depends the way how you conduct your research as part of your research design. Yeah, and all these out layers impact the inner layer in terms of the specific tools and techniques or procedures you're going to adapt for you to collect and analyze your data. Okay, so with this the positivist research, quantitative research in mind, so if this is what your research is about, it's likely, as we said, your research is going to use questionnaires to collect the data. Okay, so when you are using questionnaire to collect the data, the specific tool as a questionnaire or online survey, so the data you collected will be very likely to be quantitative. So quantitative data when it comes to the analysis, and it's likely you're going to analyze this data, mainly presented in a figures or numbers format, and then you may use, Excels or chart or tables or diagrams to present what you have found in terms of the way how you illustrate your data. Okay, so they are all consistent and all aligned with each other. So I think that's the core about the research design and the whole research methodology and methods. So far we have talked about a research methodology, which is part of your research project, and especially for now is your research proposal. So in your research methodology, you have to talk about all these outlayers beyond the data collection and data analysis. And finally, I still would like to finish this presentation with the highlight the importance of the engagement with the module. Yeah, make sure you read the core text, because the presentation is only very limited, and I hope you can extract from the presentation or inspired by the presentation and do a little bit more reading into the core textbook. And obviously, prepare for the case study and see how this weekly topic we discussed related to the case study and what did you learn out of it, and then how would you connect yourself as a researcher to the case study, what discussed in the case study. Okay, most importantly, work on your own research project. Think about your own time horizon and the way, how would you design your research in terms of the time horizon, as well as the methodological choice and the strategies you would like to adopt for your own research. Okay. So I think, again, research project is very different from any other modules, yeah? So because it leads to your later 60 credit independent research project. So it's most of the time you're the driver and you're the researcher and you have to do it by yourself. And obviously use the support whenever you need, and we're always here to support, okay? But you have to help yourself before other people can help you, all right? Reach out if you ever need help. Okay, all the best wishes for this week, and I hope you enjoy this week's content.